Hi, it's James from Momentus, and I've got another fantastic guest here as part of these videos that I'm recording for Men's Health Week. Now, how did I meet my next guest? Well, I have attended many of his networking events at one of Britain's best networking organisations. It's now worldwide, thanks to COVID, I guess. I have attended. I've even spoken at his personal development events. I have been coached by him, and well, it's an honour to introduce the UK's #1 motivational speaker, Mr. Brad Burton. Good morning, Brad. How are you?
Motivational business speaker, JP. Motivational business speaker. Otherwise, we're going to have everyone kicking off. How you doing, James?
Do you want me to start that again?
Let's keep going. Rock and roll. Let's go.
Right, cool. So, Brad, Men's Health Week. Health. What does the word health mean to you?
So, at some point, your health is going to become your priority. At some point in your life, regardless of what you think right now is a priority, at some point in your life, health is going to become a priority. And actually, I had to start making health my priority going back to 2013 or 2011, 2012. I actually had a nervous breakdown, and it took me 2.5 years to get back. Mental health isn't something that people from Salford, talks about. Mental health, didn't even know it was a thing. You might have a bad day. But so that for me, health is about feeling good about yourself, and it not only applies from a physical perspective, but also from a mental perspective. And it is something that I major on now. Like, it never used to. My priorities used to be, if I'm honest, business, family, and health. And now my priorities are health, family, and business. And so by just flipping that around, you can see how important it is. But the only time that I flipped it from being bottom of the pile was when I realized that actually you can have all the wealth in the world. If you haven't got your health, it isn't worth a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've kind of said it there. There's physical health and mental health. And knowing you, having heard your story a number of times, and and just following you on kind of social media, I know, from a physical health perspective, you were physically twice the man you are now.
Don't have it, but that was something as well, James. I think it's all connected. So when you're in a bad place, or you're focused on business, you're not thinking about the other thing. I was just like a vehicle that was taking me from one business thing to a next business thing, or to one experience to the next experience. And it wasn't until I realized that it is genuinely all connected. Like, when you're in a bad place, or you're burnt out here, you're eating bad, and then your weight starts going up, and then your blood pressure starts going up. It's all connected. And I recognized something that actually, I wouldn't be much of a motivational speaker if I couldn't motivate myself to lose weight, right?
Yep.
And I say this, never trust a fat motivational speaker, and it creates uproar. But I was a fat motivational speaker, and I genuinely woke up one day and I thought, this isn't right. This doesn't make any sense. Oh, don't get me wrong, I'm never going to be Mr. Abs, but I'm better than I was, and that's all any of us can ever be.
And do you think, and was there like a point that your eyes were opened, and was it that point where you just thought, this can't be me? I can't be as successful as I want to be, as happy as I want to be, unless I change something.
Well, this is the irony to this, is that my doctor said to me, hey, you're borderline type 2 diabetic. And and it happens to fat people. You are fat, Mr. Burton. And actually, I ignored him. I ignored his advice. I didn't want to change. And then 6 months later, I got type 2 diabetes. And at which point, can you come and see the diabetic nurse? And they come and check your feet, check your feet and your eyes and everything every 6 months. All because I like Jaffa cakes. Everyone loves cake. Everyone loves cake. Nobody likes being fat. I don't care what anyone says, right? They don't. Because actually, the great thing about being thinner, you can eat more cakes. There's a wonderful irony to that. However, from my perspective, I ended up losing control, not only from a mental perspective, but also from a physical one. And it all is all connected. I'm much better now, much stronger, mentally, emotionally, physically. Yep. And as a result, it allowed me to deal with the last 12 months or 14 months. So if I go back to the old Brad, you'd have hit me with this last 14 months, I'd have been in trouble. No two ways about it.
Yeah. And have you kind of got a routine that is good for you, whether it's a daily routine, a weekly routine that brings in that physical wellness, that the activities to keep you physically fit?
I walk the dog twice a day, so once at 6 o'clock in the morning and once about 6 o'clock in the evening. That's it. And that's the reality that I used to go to the gym. I'd go to the gym prior to COVID. I've trained, I think, for around 20 minutes in the last 12 months, like genuinely. And I've got weights in everything. 12 months, you know, and actually there's been no change physically, which is bizarre. So every single day I've been going to the gym, and actually there's been very little physical change. So that was a bit of a mind blower, an eye opener for me, that. But no, I think, like I say, walking twice a day, I do know that it's had an impact for whatever, from a calorific perspective. You know, it allowed me to eat more mini cheddars, I suppose, throughout everything.
And the Jaffa
I think
cakes.
that's the key to it. But if I didn't have dogs, I don't think I'd walk. So the dogs by default kind of bounce me into walking.
Yeah, definitely. And from a mental health perspective, you know, you've thinking about your story, you know, you've gone from a position where I can in fact picture you with your chairman with kind of your head in your hands.
Oh,
Lost.
That is
that picture, that very picture, and you know, that must have been a moment of almost hitting a brick wall mentally, just like,
oh, I was done, and I'm like literally done. I had nothing left, and I said to my chairman, I quit. I want to quit. And he said to me, do you trust me? Now, Chairman Terry is like 70-year-old now, but he was probably 60 odd then at the time. I said, trust me? I said, well, 100%. He says, right, well, you ain't quitting. I'm not letting you quit. I get it. You're tired. I get it. You're scared. I get it. You're fearful. You've come too far to only come this far. I'm not letting you quit. What I'm going to say to you is this. Do you trust me? I said, yes. He said, right. He said, on that basis, he said, in 6 months' time, we're going to put a date down now, 6 months on Outlook today, 6 months today. And if you still feel the same in 6 months, having give it the best the next 6 months, I'll let you quit. And that was a conversation that happened, I think, in 2012, November 14th, 2012. Now, if that conversation, he hadn't had that conversation, I said, well, fair enough. The Brad Burton that stands or sits before you right now wouldn't have still been around. And it just shows you that sometimes when you've got when you've got nowhere to go, you've got people around you, a support team, almost like a corner team that can bounce you through it. And that's, as you know, from a mentoring perspective, that's what I do. This is not about, taking massive action. I'm more course corrections, just little tweaks. And that's what I do in my life and my business.
And that's what I was going to say. You had that 6 month timeline, which is great. And people might say, fine, do you know what? I'm going to give it 6 months. I'm going to give it a year. But then where do you go from that point in time to the 6 months? And it's the small steps, isn't it? You can't take giant leaps because you're probably going to fall at the first one. You've got to break it.
As I said, this is so many people are concentrating on the big picture, and what I say to people is concentrate on the small picture, and the big picture will paint itself. And that's what I've always done. I any big problem that you've got, anyone who's watching this right now, whatever big problem you've got in your life, all it is, if you break it down into 100 pieces or 10 pieces, that's what I do with any big problem. Just break it down to bite-sized pieces and say, okay, what are the elements to this problem that if we fix these small things, we'll fix the big thing? And that in that situation, I needed to get myself away from the stress, needed to make changes, started losing weight and so forth. And like I say, I'd lost control. I'd lost control because I was so focused on business success. I ended up with it. Success, I was ill. And really, I've learned so many lessons from that. And it's been great because I've been able to steer other people. But there's no Haynes manual for life or business.
No.
What ends up happening is I went through it, and the next generation will go through it as well, because they don't realize, they think they're doing the right thing in running around the UK or making a business and making loads of money and this, that, and the other. They think they're doing that for the family. And then one day wakes up and your blood pressure's racing, and actually your family are nowhere to be seen. And wrong. Success, avoid it.
Yeah, and someone else I interviewed earlier this week for one of the other recordings that will go out, he said, a saying for him that resonated was, a wise man kind of learns from his mistakes. A wiser man learns from other people and their mistakes. Just, it's like, there is no manual, but just look around and look at what happened to them. What did they do?
Is that a mistake is only a mistake after the event. Up until that point is the correct decision. So nobody wakes up and says, you know what, I'm going to go mess up. So any decision that anyone ever makes, they believe to be the correct one at the time. Totally.
So moving on to mental health, and I think something that's really topical, and you're kind of all over this right now, and it's a big issue, and I'm following it, and because I think it's just great. Is, we're in this digital world, and we've been in it for a long time. It's obviously been even more so over the last 12, 14 months, and there's a lot. We see it with everything from sports and famous personalities and so on who are getting abused online. And you're calling it out, be kind or don't. You're making it happen, because, I can imagine just how difficult it must feel mentally if you are on the receiving end of it, whether it's abuse, whether it's someone copying your profile, taking your stuff and making it look like their own, whatever it might be. That's that's got to be hard work mentally. And what do you think for you has made you get to that point going, do you know what, I've had enough of this?
So the be kind or don't. Let's go back 2 years ago. Caroline Flack killed herself. Trigger warning. You can't say she killed herself. That's the reality of it. She killed herself. We don't know why, right? But a contributing factor would have been the abuse you'd have got for her online. Okay. And, after that, after she died and in the press, be kind, hashtag be kind, we need to have the life of abundance, be kind. And then, of course, that principle doesn't apply if you don't like someone. And that's where the be kind or don't campaign came in, because I've been having this abuse for 18 months. And I thought to myself, this wasn't going away. People rise above it. You need to rise above it. You need to ignore it. And actually, I was ignoring it. But then when they start, then they try to get to me and they can't get to me. So then they start working on people that I know, or people, and it's just disgusting, like genuinely disgusting. Yeah. And there comes a point where I would have been failing my team if I didn't act. So I'm thinking to myself, this could have manifested itself in various ways. Let's be quite clear. I had a nervous breakdown back in 2013. So it's not like I'm adverse to that kind of mental health. Yeah. Last year, I had a burnout for 2 weeks. Once again, documented it. Pressure got to me. So I don't know where the tipping point is for somebody like me to commit suicide. I've got no idea, right? Yeah. It's never been on my radar, but nonetheless, everyone has a finite break point. When you go to a gym, lift up a weight, there'll be a point where you can't lift up any more weight. It's too heavy for you. So let's be clear. Last 12 months, we've come off this whole COVID thing, lockdown. My business, £100,000 a month plus, went to nothing overnight. So, the impact that's had not only on me, but my staff and everything is massive. And yet people believe that they can go around causing all sorts of mayhem. Now, I don't know what the break point is, but let's say, because some people said, I don't agree with what you've done, right? Which is what I'm going to get to in a second. Would they have agreed with me killing myself? Because, if I would have done that, and I'm being dramatic on purpose here, but if I would have off myself because of the pressure, not only of business, but also the abuse I got for, then what would have happened the next day? People would have been deleting the threads that they said about me. And let's be quite clear, it is like all just fantasy made up, and it is just lies. It's disgusting. And actually, but like for instance, let's say, and I'll give you an example of it. Let's say I went on Facebook and said, James Perryman, I'm not going to say too much, but you wouldn't want him babysitting your children, right? Now I go put that on your timeline. Now, what's your reaction? Do you go delete it, but you can't delete it because it's on my timeline? Do you send me a message? Do you what if I did that about you? What would you do? What would your reaction be?
Probably the first thing would be to message you, and then probably to put a comment to say, I've messaged you. Okay. What on earth is this about?
So what about I block you, right? I don't want to speak to this man, this terrible man. I don't want anything to do with him. I block you and I delete your comments. Then what do you do?
I would probably, if it's on Facebook, probably then raise it to Facebook.
Yeah, and they ignore it. They ignore it because I'm entitled to an opinion. I've said nothing. Then what?
Then I would probably feel like I would have to take a copy of that, take like a snapshot of what you'd put, and then on my profile then say, this has been said, this is what I've done.
And what about somebody who's a rival of yours then comes on my timeline and says, yeah, I've heard that about him. And that goes on for 18 months. And actually, then it starts affecting you and your family and your kids and your wife, because that's what these people have done. Not necessarily that, but that's what they've done. Just a horrible whisper campaign.
Yeah, just by one comment.
I'm racist, I'm sexist, I'm a misogynist, and the list goes on of stuff like that, right? Now, this is all just like based. There's an alternative story or hypothesis that I could give you as to why these people are saying it. For instance, as part of this campaign, I said, people are saying, oh yeah, phone networking, this, that, and the other. And actually, the reason they're no longer in phone networking is because they got removed for bad business, for ripping people off. I've got a duty of care to those thousands of members that if somebody's doing bad business and we're hearing about it, we have a duty of care to remove them. Yeah. And that's so rather than going quiet, they then say, yeah, I left as well. And it was just all this kind of stuff. It's horrible. So, I thought, okay, this wasn't going away. So I thought, right, here we go. I'm going to put them on blast. And that's exactly what I did. I said to them to delete your comments or don't. Be kind or don't. And actually, if you don't, not a problem. Tomorrow, 12 o'clock, I'm going to release I'm going to share what you've said on social media That's it. Without comment from me, just going to put it on social media. And I did that. And, you know, and it was quite clear as to the, you know, there was another side to the story, and another person, we ended up doing 5 people like that. And I didn't want to do any of this. Genuinely, right? I'm 48 years old. I've got all time.
You've got better stuff to do.
Genuinely, but there comes a point when actually it starts, you know, and just because somebody can say something and get away with it doesn't mean it's right. And just because, oh, I'm a big tough guy, Brad can handle it. No, he can't. And this is the thing that I say to this whole Be Kind or Don't campaign. Caroline Flack killed herself. Next day, the newspapers Be Kind. The irony to this is some of those people that said Be Kind are the same people that are driving this agenda. Why? Try to work out what is going on with these individuals. And let me tell you something. Back in 2003, I was one of these individuals. I was in a bad place. I was long-term unemployed. I was frustrated with my life at 30 years old. I was eating 2 ready meals a day, microwave meals a day, and sitting there being Mr. Angry online, giving people stick on social media. And I was exceptional at it. That was all I had. That was the best thing that I had going on in my life. The fact that I was a 6-shooter effectively, and I could handle any online fight and argument. Disgusting. And I look at myself and I go, what was going on there? I was in a bad place. I've since made amends to that company. I've actually contacted the managing director 2010, 2011, and I've made amends to it. But the point is that somewhere along the way, I was that guy. So I can see what's going on here. This is not about me. This is about them and their stuff. But once again, when someone's that angry, if you just said to me, as my wife did in 2003, she wasn't my wife, but she said to me, you need to curtail this. I didn't see it. I thought I had some moral crusade. I look back at it now and I think I was just in a bad place. So this whole Be Kind or Don't, recognize that from a mental health perspective, everyone's got a tipping point. Everyone's got a break point. But also, Be Kind or Don't is I'm trying to help these individuals who, quite frankly, are not being kind, right? By highlighting that something is going very wrong with their life. If they're spending time on my business, on my life, they're not spending time on their life or their business. So consequently, they're going to get themselves in a mess. But it's a really good campaign. We're going through a legal system. So just to be clear, you know, people said, oh, well, I think you was a bit too aggressive, Brad. Let me tell you what you saw. You saw 7 days of what I've been copying for 18 months. And if you looked at when I mentioned this example a second ago, James, and you see how it just escalates and escalates and escalates, and you feel like, well, this is unfair. This is so unfair. And like I say, and then it starts affecting your wife because she's hearing about it. Her wife's friend at school seeing it. It's like, whoa. So at some point, you've got no room to fire back. And this is where we are with the campaign. And actually, we moved it into a different. I had to do 7 days of hardcoreness. That was always the game. But interestingly about mental health, on the Saturday, when I started this campaign on the whatever day it was, Pippa, who is my right-hand lady in terms of from a business perspective, she contacted me on Saturday and said, effectively, do you trust me conversation again? I said, yes. She says, delete your Facebook app. I want you to delete it for the next 36 hours, please. Because right now you're in a bit of a tornado here. And she was right. And I did just that. And this was 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago. This isn't like, years ago. But equally, there comes that break point for an individual that if it didn't manifest itself in this way, it may well have manifested itself in a different way on a motorway bridge. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think
it's sad, James, because behind every single Instagram account or Facebook account is an individual, a real individual with real family, real bills to pay, and so forth. And I don't know and this is the point that I make, I don't know what outcome they want. Do they want me to lose my business, to lose my marriage, to lose my friends, to lose my mental health, to have a stroke, to die? What outcome do they want? Because, I don't even think they know. I just think that people, I've just been writing my 5th book at the moment, Be Kind or Don't, the book. And I just wrote something, which is, you remember when you was a kid and it was you're hearing the whispers in school, there's going to be a fight after school, and you're all getting excited. You don't know why, who's fighting. You've got no idea. You don't care. All you want is like, the fight. And then school comes, the bell goes, fight, and you're all running. And there might be one person that doesn't want to fight, but there's got a load of people around them shouting, fight, and they're pushing them into it and they end up fighting. The difference is these individuals are not 7-year-old anymore. No. It's embarrassing. As grown people, you're spending your evenings typing furiously against me, about bullshit, quite frankly. Odd.
Yeah. And you know what? I think it's shown what goes on in the online world, but so much of it goes on in the offline world, within a corporate environment. And I stepped back into that at the end of last year for a kind of a small contract with quite a big organization, and the culture in there was horrible. And I call it offline, the bullying that, we're talking senior people. And I kind of wrapped up my contract early because I just said, I can't do this anymore. It was affecting me. I was waking up in the morning, anxious, not sleeping. It was a bad version of me. It's like, I know what it's from, so I've just got to step away. Since then, I think about 5 or 6 other people have left. They've just seen the light, and you think this goes on underneath the surface. But it's their 9 to 5.
I think the thing is with this bullying, right? Like I say, I think there's a lot of this stuff. Like, somebody's entitled to have an opinion on me. I don't like Brad Burton. He's got a face like a potato. Fine. Like, genuinely, not a problem. You're absolutely entitled not to like me, not to like my business, whatever. What you're not entitled to do is day in, day out, chase. That becomes stalkerish. That becomes someone who's bullying. See, it's just an opinion. It's not really. If all day in, listen, literally 18 months of this. 18 months. And the reason that I believe it grown is because I didn't stamp on it at first. And actually, people rising above it, don't rock the boat and all that. And there comes a point, and let's be clear, not everyone's as robust as me, right? Not everyone's got resources that can afford to spend daft money on legal bills. It's just ridiculous. Yeah. On a fight that I don't even want. That's like, what's that about? But what this is about is about proving the point that actually that you cannot just keep going around. Think about it from a real world perspective. Somebody comes up to you and just punches you. You don't know if they're going to punch you, they're going to spit on you, they're going to give you abuse. They wouldn't do it in real life. And yet somewhere along the way, the impunity, and I think, let's be clear, the last 12 months as I think allowed a lot of undiagnosed mental illness, right? Because it's been stressful. And here's the thing, people under stress don't make great decisions. Now, my network, for networking, thousands of members, let's be clear, they will have had support from other members. They would have belonged. If you're not in the network, you're going to be more stressed and you're more angry and so forth. Now, I spoke yesterday to Steph Thomas, former director of For Networking. And I said to him, Steph, you worked with me for the last 12 years on For Networking. How many members have we banned? And I didn't prompt him, from memory, how many members have we banned? And he went, 10 maybe. So anyone that's been removed from my network has done something pretty terrible. Now, they're never going to admit that they've done something terrible. What they're going to say is that there's a problem with For Networking, or Brad Burton's a bully, or is this, that, and the other. What they're not going to say is actually what I was doing is I was banging everyone's husband, and I got found out, and I had to leave the network overnight. And when my husband said, why have you left? You said that Brad Burton's this, that, and the other. Do you see what I'm saying? And so these kind of half stories that people, and that's the really sad thing about this, is that every single person that has been removed from the network, as part of the Be Kind or Don't, I have information on them, which actually, if it was in the public domain, would ruin their reputation, would ruin their business. And it's something that I don't want to do. But my only defense when these guys are doing these things is to go offensive or go on the offensive. That's not what I want to do. I don't want to do that 48 years. And that's what I said. And I think people call my bluff. I think people thought I was bluffing last week when actually I put 5 of them on blast. That it just kept going. And I went, okay, no problem. I'm going to do a release. I'll tell you how much I didn't want to do this. I actually did a Rick roll on one of them. Said, "Hey, big thing." I don't know if you saw that. There's like Rick. Yeah. I did that on purpose because I don't want to do this, but I will. And that's the only way that if this stops, the only way that this stops is through it stopping. And it's sad that I've got to use my kind of nous and play this game in order to be able to defend against it. Yeah. Cracker. But, and that's what this is about. It's about pulling the curtain back on this bullying so that people can see what goes on. Because, like I say, those people that saw my reaction felt, I was overreacting, because they think I've just seen one post. I've had this for 18 months. That is why. So what you saw was 18 months of frustration. Yeah.
And just got to the point of going, oh, right, that's it. Yeah.
Or I spoke to Steph Thomas yesterday, and as part of this Be Kind or Don't, Steph Thomas said, he was in a bad place 3 years ago and he was contemplating not lasting the day out. If he would have been a target for that at the same time as he was going through that, we might not have a Steph Thomas right now. No. And that says to me how dangerous and volatile that this stuff is. And it's all fun and games until it starts becoming fun and games. And all of a sudden, you imagine that I off myself, right? That's never been on my radar. But if I off myself, can you imagine the next day, we should have done something. We shouldn't have ignored it. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean that. What I meant was this. And that's the point that I was trying to make throughout this entire campaign. At one point, we was considering setting up a photo shoot over me in an ambulance with a drip in my arm, just for effect, and actually to see what happened. We was like, literally, we made a decision not to do that, but that's what I couldn't make happen as me with an ECG on. And actually just to prove the point, because then all of a sudden, okay, it was all bullshit. We'd have said it was bullshit the next day, but that's the point. And it shouldn't need to be that way, that people believe as adults that they can behave like that, like 7-year-old children shouting, fight, fight, fight. It's disgusting. You've got real people on the other side of each of these accounts. And I think that the point you made before, which was, I'm not a celebrity, far from it, right? But somewhere along the way in the public domain or public eye, certainly in my field, that people believe that they can take pot shots at you, and it's wrong. It's very wrong. Yeah,
and this, I kind of have an analogy, and you've kind of mentioned it right at the start about how you're trying to balance different things. I talk about spinning plates, and if you imagine, in your life, you're trying to spin a plate of your work and career, whether you're in a job, you've got your own business or businesses, family, friends, diet and nutrition, exercise and fitness, religion, if you're religious, whatever, you've got these plates. And then, you've got to try and manage them the best way you can, and B, then this big ass plate that you've just passionately spoke about comes along. But kind of go back, well, not before that, because you've been obviously dealing with this for a long time, but those plates that you have in your life generally, what's your approach? How do you try and spin them all? Do you spin them all? Do you prioritize?
I think this is the bit where, remember what I said before, people under stress don't make great decisions. So what I do is I get ahead of any stress that is coming my way. So I don't allow myself to be stressed in any way. Okay, it happens on occasion. Yeah. A good example of that, I kind of have like a real reserve of stress to come my way. But when it comes to balancing resources, I think that I get ahead of it. What I do is I think, okay, in 2 weeks, that's going to need spinning that plate. So let's spin it out a week out when you've got a bit of headspace there. Yeah. So I'm really good. That's probably one of my amazing skills, genuinely, the ability to be able to juggle lots of things competing for my time and my energy. But it's so important that you do protect your energy. It's so important. One of the things that I did and talk about this thing is they don't get involved with Facebook arguments. Staying there, arguing the toss about some mask wearing, not mask wearing, about Donald Trump, about Brexit. Pointless, absolutely futile. And I said this the other day. I said, if you had a clock, digital clock on your head, and it told you how much time you had left on this planet, would you really be spending time arguing the toss on about Facebook arguments? No. So, I think the key to this thing is to make certain that you're not wasting time and energy, and protect your energy. It's so important that you protect your energy. This situation that I encountered, that fight wouldn't have gone away until I made it go away. And I have genuinely made it go away, because it's now been uncool to tear the ass out of Brad Burton. Because actually, if you do that, you could get put out on a wider audience. And actually, that's not a good look for your business either.
Yeah. A lot of people in my network, and to kind of bring this kind of draw it to a close, a lot of people in my network got people who run their own business, a bit like me. They're in the early stages, even 5-6 years in. But there's also people who they're in their career and they're at the tipping point. They've had enough of the career. They're just tired. They're tired of working for someone else, trying to say yes to everything, and they want to make a change. What's your one bit of advice you would give to those people who are just at that crossroad?
Yeah, you're not getting any younger. You're as young as you're going to ever be. And whatever you want to do, go and do it. Either stop talking about it and go and do it, or accept that you're never going to do it and all you're going to do is talk about it. It is a binary decision. I started my business off at 31, delivering pizzas to keep that business afloat. I'm now 48, so it's been 17 years, half of my adult life devoted to business, a third of my entire life devoted to one business. And, when I started my business, my wife genuinely didn't want me to do it. I'm so glad that I did. I ignored her, turned down the volume on that. But I recognize that where you end up in your life is a direct result of your decisions, good ones or bad ones. And I ask you to think about, if you wanted to start a business or change direction, what's the best case scenario? What's the worst case scenario? What's the most likely scenario? If you can live with the downside of any decision, you should go for it.
Perfect. Brilliant. Brad, thank you. You speak passionately. You speak about things that are very real to people. And I think, the fact that you mentor people, you help people, you're showcasing what's going on is fantastic. Keep being you. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you so much, James.
Thank you for your time, and have a great rest of the day.